The silent return. The deep space monitoring station Horizon's Edge floated at the very boundary of human territory, where the last wisps of civilization met the infinite black. Captain Elena Vasquez had spent 12 years watching empty space, listening to cosmic whispers that meant nothing. She had grown comfortable with the silence, with the routine of scanning dead sectors and filing reports no one would ever read. The universe beyond the frontier was supposed to be empty, quiet, predictable. That changed on a Tuesday. The first anomaly appeared as a flicker on her quantum sensors, so faint she almost missed it during her morning coffee. Elena set down her mug and leaned forward, adjusting the sensitivity. The reading vanished, then returned stronger. Something massive was moving through subspace, creating ripples in dimensions humans barely understood. She ran diagnostics, convinced her equipment was failing. The machines reported perfect functionality. 3 hours later, the ripples became waves. Elena's second-in-command, Lieutenant James Park, rushed into the observation deck with wide eyes. "Captain, you need to see this. Every sensor array from here to the Perseus arm is going insane. Whatever's coming, it's big, and it's not using any propulsion system we recognize." Elena pulled up the combined sensor data from 17 monitoring stations. The pattern that emerged made her blood run cold. Hundreds of objects were approaching from beyond the galactic plane, from regions of space where nothing should exist. They moved in perfect formation, maintaining distances that suggested military precision. But their energy signatures were wrong, twisted somehow, as if the ships themselves had been fundamentally altered by their journey through the dark. The emergency channels erupted with chatter as other stations confirmed the readings. Elena heard fear in voices that had forgotten what fear meant. These were veterans of the frontier, people who had seen pirates, raiders, and worse. Yet something about these approaching vessels struck a primal chord of dread. The ships were human in origin. That much the computers could confirm, but they matched no known configurations. They were ghosts from another age. Then came the identification that changed everything. The lead vessel's transponder, buried beneath layers of interference and corruption, still transmitted its original designation. UES Prometheus, flagship of the Expeditionary Fleet 7. Elena's hands trembled as she cross-referenced the data. That fleet had vanished 300 years ago, pursuing an unknown enemy beyond the edge of mapped space. Every ship had been declared lost with all hands. Memorials stood on a dozen worlds honoring their sacrifice. "Contact in T-minus 60 seconds, Park announced, his voice barely steady. Elena activated the station's defensive grid, though she knew it was pointless. If this fleet meant harm, Horizon's Edge would vanish like dust. She opened all communication channels, broadcasting on every frequency humans had ever used. The seconds stretched into eternity. The fleet emerged from subspace like titans rising from an ocean of darkness. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The ships were massive, far larger than their original specifications suggested. Their hulls bore scars that looked like claw marks from god-sized beasts. Strange growths of crystalline material sprouted from their surfaces, pulsing with bioluminescent light. These vessels had been to hell and been changed by the journey. The Prometheus moved forward, separating from the formation. Elena could see its original human architecture beneath the modifications, like finding a familiar face beneath terrible scars. Weapon systems she couldn't identify bristled from every surface. The ship looked less like a vessel and more like a living organism that had learned to swim through space. A transmission cut through the static, and Elena heard a voice that shouldn't exist. "This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the Expeditionary Fleet 7. We have returned from beyond the rim. Humanity must prepare. They are coming." The voice was human but wrong, as if multiple throats were speaking in unison. Elena forced herself to respond. "Admiral Chen, this is Captain Vasquez of Horizon's Edge. You've been gone for 300 years. Everyone believes you're dead. How are you still alive?" A pause heavy with unspoken horrors. "Time moves differently in the dark places between galaxies. We have been gone 300 years by your count. For us, it has been longer, much longer. We tracked them to their spawning grounds, fought them where light has never touched. We won, but victory came at a price." Elena exchanged glances with Park. "Admiral, who are they? What's coming?" "The Devourers." Chen's voice carried a weight that made Elena's skin crawl. "They consume civilizations, strip worlds to the bone, leave nothing but void in their wake. We destroyed their vanguard, but the main swarm detected us. They followed our trail back. Humanity has perhaps one solar rotation to prepare. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of electronics. Elena struggled to process the information. 1 year. 1 year before an enemy that had transformed humanity's greatest fleet into something barely recognizable arrived at their doorstep. She thought of Earth, of the colonies, of billions of lives unaware of the approaching storm. "Admiral, what do you need from us? How can we help?" Another pause, longer this time. "We need nothing. We have become what was necessary to survive, to return with this warning. Look at us, Captain. We are no longer entirely human. The modifications were required to fight them, to think like them, to survive where they thrive. We are your shield, but we are also your reminder of the cost of survival." Elena studied the tactical display showing the returned fleet. 217 ships, each one transformed into something between machine and organism. She could see smaller vessels moving between them like antibodies in a bloodstream. Fighter craft had been replaced with things that looked more grown than built. This wasn't just a fleet anymore. It was an ecosystem of war, Park whispered beside her. "My God, what happened to them out there?" Chen's voice returned, softer now, almost human. "We adapted, Lieutenant. When you fight monsters in the dark between stars, you must become something they fear. We learned their biology, their technology, their weaknesses. We integrated what we learned. Every modification you see is a lesson written in flesh and metal. Every scar is knowledge purchased with blood." Elena made a decision that would change humanity's fate. "Admiral Chen, Horizon's Edge is at your disposal. We'll relay your warning to Earth Command immediately, but we need more than warnings. We need to know how to fight them. You cannot fight them as you are." Chen's response was immediate and brutal. "Your weapons will not penetrate their bioships. Your shields will not stop their harvester beams. Your strategies assume enemies that think like you think, fight like you fight. The Devourers are something else entirely. They are hunger given form, entropy with purpose." The main view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Chen's bridge. Elena gasped. The Admiral stood at the center of a chamber that looked more organic than mechanical. Tendrils of that same crystalline material she'd seen on the hull connected him to various stations. His uniform was still recognizably human military, but his skin had a subtle luminescence and his eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. Other crew members moved in the background, each showing similar modifications. "Do not fear us, Captain. We are still human where it counts." Chen touched his chest over his heart. "We remember Earth. We remember why we left. We remember what we're protecting. That memory kept us sane when everything else tried to drive us mad. Now we must teach humanity to evolve or watch it be devoured." Elena straightened in her chair. "Then teach us, Admiral. Whatever the cost, we'll pay it." Chen's expression, alien as it had become, showed something like approval. "Contact Earth Command. Tell them the lost fleet has returned. Tell them we bring weapons and knowledge from the dark. Tell them that humanity's greatest test approaches. And we must be ready. The age of comfortable ignorance is over. The age of transformation begins now." The dark truth. 6 months had passed since the return of Fleet 7. Earth's major cities now bristled with defensive installations based on the hybrid technology the fleet had brought back. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the newly constructed Fortress Luna, humanity's first line of defense. Beside her, Admiral Chen studied holographic displays showing deployment patterns across the solar system. The transformation of humanity's military had been swift and brutal. Volunteers had undergone the crystalline modifications, accepting alien biology into their bodies to interface with the new weapon systems. Elena herself bore the marks, thin lines of bioluminescent material running along her arms, connecting her nervous system to the fortress's sensors. She could feel space itself, sense disturbances in dimensions humans had only theorized about. "They're close," Chen said quietly. His transformed senses reached further than any human instrument. 3 days, perhaps 4. The Vanguard will test our defenses first. When they find resistance, the main swarm will converge. Elena nodded, her modified eyes processing data streams that would have overwhelmed her human brain. The evacuation ships were still launching from Earth, carrying those who couldn't fight to the colony worlds. It wouldn't save them if humanity failed here, but it might buy time. Around Luna, 3,000 ships waited, a mixture of traditional human vessels and the biomechanical hybrids Chen's fleet had helped create. "Tell me about the enemy," Elena said. Not the tactical data, not their weapons. Tell me what they are. Chen's expression darkened, and for a moment Elena saw the weight of centuries in his eyes. Imagine hunger that has existed since the universe was young. Not hunger for food, but for complexity itself. The devourers feed on organized matter, on the patterns that separate order from chaos. They see a civilization, and where we see beauty, achievement, life, they see only fuel for their endless consumption. He gestured to the tactical display, where predictive models showed the approaching swarm. They are not evil in the way we understand evil. They simply are. They exist to unmake what the universe has made, to return everything to base elements that they absorb and carry with them. We've tracked the remnants of 10,000 civilizations in their wake, each one reduced to quantum foam in memory. Elena shuddered despite her modifications. The crystalline implants helped her process the cosmic horror of it, kept her mind from breaking at the implications. How did you survive so long against them? We learned to think in ways that hurt, Chen replied. Human logic, human tactics. They mean nothing to creatures that exist partially outside our dimensional framework. We had to break our minds and rebuild them. Integrate thought patterns from species the devourers had consumed, whose knowledge echoed in the quantum signatures of their destroyers. Lieutenant Park's voice crackled over the comm system. Admiral, Captain, we're detecting subspace distortions at the edge of the system. It's starting. Elena felt it through her modifications before the sensors confirmed it. Space itself seemed to recoil as the first devourer ships emerged from dimensions humanity barely understood. They didn't look like ships at all. They resembled massive organisms, tentacles of dark matter trailing behind them, mouths that could swallow moons gaping at their fronts. They moved without regard for physics, sliding between dimensions like sharks through water. All stations, battle readiness, Elena commanded. Her voice carried across the entire defense fleet through the crystalline network. Remember your training. Trust your modifications. We fight not just for Earth, but for the concept of existence itself. The human fleet responded with precision that would have been impossible before the modifications. Ships moved in patterns that hurt to perceive, matching the dimensional sliding of their enemies. The hybrid weapons came online, reality-warping cannons that fired not projectiles but concepts, ideas given murderous form. The first engagement lasted 12 minutes and cost humanity 300 ships, but the Devourer Vanguard was repelled, their bioships writhing as human weapons found purchase in dimensions they hadn't expected resistance from. Elena felt each loss through the network, experienced the final moments of modified humans whose consciousness briefly touched hers before winking out. Chen stood perfectly still. His awareness extended across the entire battlefield. They're learning, adapting. Each engagement teaches them more about our modifications. We have hours before they develop counters. Then we make those hours count, Elena replied. She accessed the deepest levels of the fortress's systems, protocols Chen had insisted on but hoped never to use. Operation Chrysalis. Are you certain there's no other way? Chen's expression was grim. We always knew this moment would come. The modifications we've undergone, they're just the first step. To truly fight the Devourers, humanity must evolve beyond its current form. Chrysalis will transform every modified human into something closer to what we became in the dark. We'll lose much of what makes us human, but we'll gain the power to protect those who remain. Elena thought of Earth below, billions of unmodified humans going about their lives, trusting their protectors to keep the monsters at bay. She thought of her sister, her nephew, everyone she'd known before taking this post. They deserved to remain human, to never know the cosmic horror that lurked between stars. Do it, she commanded. Chen initiated the protocol. Across the solar system, every modified human felt the change begin. The crystalline material in their bodies activated fully, spreading like a living web through flesh and bone. Elena gasped as her consciousness expanded, touching not just the fortress's systems but the fabric of space itself. She could feel the Devourer's hunger, understand their alien thoughts, perceive the universe as they did. The transformation was agony and ecstasy combined. Elena watched her hands change, becoming something between flesh and living crystal. Her thoughts multiplied, processing information in ways that transcended human logic. Around her, the command center reformed, technology and biology merging into something entirely new. When the main swarm arrived, humanity was ready. The transformed defenders met them in dimensions humans had never named, fought with weapons that existed as much in thought as in reality. Elena found herself commanding not just ships but concepts, wielding paradoxes like swords, using the nature of existence itself as a shield. The battle raged for 7 days across multiple dimensional planes. Earth's skies burned with colors that had no names as reality itself became a battlefield. The transformed humans fought with a fury born of protecting something precious, something they'd voluntarily separated themselves from to preserve. On the 8th day, the devourers retreated, not defeated but discouraged. The effort required to consume humanity had exceeded the energy they would gain. They slid back into the dark between stars, seeking easier prey among the cosmos. Elena stood on Luna's observation deck, her transformed body barely recognizable as human. Beside her, Chen watched the enemy disappear into dimensions beyond perception. We've won this encounter, but they'll remember. They'll carry knowledge of us into the dark. Elena's voice, now a harmony of tones, carried acceptance. Then we'll be ready. We've become something new, something that stands between humanity and the dark. We are no longer fully human, but we are humanity's guardians. Below on Earth, billions of humans continued their lives, unaware of how close they'd come to extinction. The transformed defenders maintained their vigil, forever changed, forever watching. They'd become the legends they'd once thought were lies, protectors dwelling in the space between human and other. In the years that followed, humanity expanded under the protection of its transformed guardians. New generations grew up knowing that monsters existed in the dark, but so did those who'd sacrificed their humanity to fight them. The legend of Fleet 7 became a reminder that sometimes, to preserve what we are, some must become what we are not. The universe remained vast and hostile, filled with horrors that defied comprehension. But humanity had evolved, adapted, survived, and in the dark between stars the transformed watched and waited, ready for whatever emerged from the void. Elena's final log entry, transmitted to Earth's archives, read simply, "We are no longer what we were, but we remember what we protect." The dark holds no fear for those who have become darkness to fight it. Humanity endures, and we endure for humanity. This is our choice, our gift, our eternal watch.